All right, guys, looks like we're live. Sorry, I set up the project, doing a couple of things. It just seems like no matter how I put the wires together, the breaker kept going. So finally I figured it out. But this is Ashley Williams, Legacy Farms Coffee. Also have LF Missions, which runs the 503c or whatever you call it, nonprofit here in Cerro Bueno, Honduras. You guys can follow us on Legacy Farms Coffee 2010 on Instagram and Legacy Farms Coffee 200 on YouTube. For the next week or so, we're going to have some really good videos out, farm stuff. I'll be posting those on YouTube tonight on our YouTube channel. You can always send me an email if we're not connected on Messenger, which is the best way to get in touch with me. You can always shoot something to me at legacyfarmscoffee@hotmail.com. Sorry, I had to step away. I'm not getting a very good signal tonight, and I couldn't get this fiber router. I couldn't get it going. So my face is red because I've been running. All right, there was a couple questions, a little bit of housekeeping. We've got Seth that is on. I'll bring him on in just a second, and I'll let him explain a little bit better. But there was a couple people that had asked this week about an upcoming podcast. Tomorrow night, we're going to have Guillermo and Gunther Weyer. Their family originates from Germany. They were some of the first people that came here from Germany in late 1800s, early 1900s. I don't know if he invented the depulper that takes the cherry off the coffee, but I know he started the first mill, wet mill, here in our area. And of course, that was 120 something years ago. And that family is still in coffee, but they're big organic guys. They're not big farmers, but they are 110% organic. They grow fruit, vegetables, coffee, but everything's organic, except for the beer. But other than that, or it might be, I don't know. I'm going to bring on Seth. I've rigged up a table here, so my computer is going to be rocking. To the stage. Hey, Seth.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
I can.
All right.
You can turn your camera on, off, however you want to do it.
Okay. I'm actually not sure what this is. I emailed either it was you or somebody from your team because I'm trying to find a particular roast of yours that I should maybe buy. And I'm not sure what I was invited to here exactly. Whoever it was just said call in and maybe we can answer your questions there. So,
well, when I'm in the States, once a week, we do a podcast. Okay. There'll be a couple hundred people that watch it over the next few weeks. Most that's ever watched one, I think right now is 462 is our biggest viewing. But okay. We open it up to, I have a lot of green customers, but only about 35% of my coffee is, the other 65% is sold green. So I've got customers that buy the tea, the cardamom, that buy the green coffee, anywhere from home roasters all the way up to, I've got one guy that buys, 4,500 pounds a year. He's got sort of a standing order. Mm-hmm. And then we've got a few coffee shops. Coffee shops aren't something that we're really go towards. Long story short, you can't grow a good coffee, pay well, and support projects and make a profit. So you got to pick something. And so what we did that for a couple of years. And then what we finally decided is we've got to get into the roasted. So after my third year, I started learning to roast. I bought a roaster. And then eventually the paperwork was too much, roasting it here, shipping it to the States. So just luckily, right before COVID, about 6 months before COVID, I shipped the roasters to the States. And it was sitting in the garage. And I tested it, hooked it up and tested it. But we needed to get back to Honduras for the next harvest. So we just left it there and didn't think about it. Then harvest hit. And when harvest hit, we had to decide where we're going to die from COVID in the United States or die from COVID in Honduras. We decided to die from COVID in the United States. So we came back, I guess it was about May. April or first week of May, we finally got back in the United States. And And so I didn't have anything to do. So I went to Lowe's, got a couple truckloads of wood. So the old garage that we just temporarily had it was a 70-year-old garage. We temporarily had the roaster sitting in there so we could test it. So the health department had already come out and told us what we would have to do if we stayed there. And so I just didn't have anything better to do. So I started doing that. So I built a sort of a wall, just like you would build if you were, roughing out a house or building a house. Mm-hmm. And then I insulated the wall, and then I sheetrocked it inside the, concrete garage. And so, and then we just started getting our sinks and all the ducks in a row. And so we started roasting coffee because I knew the math. I know that, when we sell green coffee, we're making anywhere from 80 cents to $1.10 a pound. And we don't grow enough to make a living off of that. So the only option was to sell roasted coffee.
Right.
And so that's when we got into roasted coffee. So now we're coming into our fourth year of roasting coffee and selling it roasted, and we're up to about 35%. Our minimum is going to be 50% of the farm. I need to be selling half the coffee I grow roasted. And at that point, we'll be able to start breathing a little bit easier. But to answer your question, the person you were talking to earlier was me. I was on the back porch.
Okay.
I've been out all day. I basically just eat eggs when I'm here because I'm just lazy and I don't want to fix some meal that I got to clean up. And so I'll just fry some eggs. And so when I was texting you or answered your email, I just thrown on a couple pieces of bologna and I was like, I'm going to make a piece of toast. And then it went into a glass of orange juice and I made a pot of coffee.
And then so, you had the whiskey and
it kept getting bigger and bigger. And so I said, well, I got about 3 calls I have to make. So no, the podcast isn't some big Joe Rogan podcast. Maybe it will be someday. But we've got it on a couple of the sites. I think it's on Podbean now and a couple of things like that. I haven't been very, diligent about watching who all's watching it, but I do go over the numbers sometimes. And you'll get emails saying how many people watched. And so I know 462 is our biggest watched email or podcast.
Well, can I ask you? So I'm used to your El Guapo. I think it's El Guapo Medium, and to me it was wonderful for what was it? Probably 8-9 months. And then lately, I've had some bags that I was having a harder time getting the more sour taste out of. I know a lot of people like that, and it's more, they would call it fruity or whatever, but I'm having a harder time getting that out. And I've done every method possible, and I've looked through everything because I know I really like that roast for quite a long time. But we've got an espresso machine now, and I'd like to either I'll get your espresso blend, or if you could talk me into anything else, any of your other. I'm on your site now, so I see your El Gringo and your there's a bunch of them. Johnny's Java, but maybe you could walk me through what you think that I would like. I don't like any of the more fruity or sour roasts. I like just kind of clean, I would say rich, but dark and earthy and almost chalky, like just, maybe you could say a few things about that and I'll start purchasing those out too.
A couple of our main coffees, and I'm going to quickly go over like processes. We started calling it Gringo Guapo, Johnny's Java, because a lot of people were getting confused. People that don't have espresso machines, that aren't like really into coffee, get confused on canal washed versus red honey versus full natural.
Right.
And then when you get into detail, there's actually a yellow honey, a red honey, a black honey. There's a canal washed, a machine washed. And then there's a pulp natural, there's a full natural, and then you throw in an extra 12 hours of fermenting or an extra 24 hours of fermenting. Each one of those things drastically changes how the coffee is. And so what I decided to do was not focus on 2 or 3 things and try to do them well. I don't always accomplish that, like with your sour coffee that you're drinking. So what we did is we started naming them Gringo and Guapo. So there's 3 coffees that the Gringo is a canal washed, and that's a process, how we process it after it's been picked. And it's a Lempira variety. But also the El Guapo, which is where I think you got, is a Lempira variety, but it's red honey. And the difference between those 2 coffees is when the Gringo, when we do that one, the washed Lempira, or canal washed, because it's a big difference between washed and canal washed. So, but we'll just say washed. So the washed coffee is the Gringo, still Lempira variety. It gets fermented for 24 to 36 hours. And then we take that and pulp it, which means we take that big cherry off of it, which I meant to bring some cherries in the house tonight. And then after that, it goes into literally a ceramic canal. And then they have wooden rakes. And with those wooden rakes, they start just raking back and forth. And what we've done was we've got a couple of boards that block that canal. And so when the water rises to a certain level and those women are back and forth washing that coffee, the bad beans float up to the top and then float out that canal. When we're done, it looks like a little peanut, but a brighter color, and it is just squeaky clean. And they keep just doing that, between their fingers till it's squeaky clean. And so that coffee is going to be, for this variety we're talking about, it's going to be a chocolate base, caramel notes, and according to how medium I can hit, sometimes we get a nutty finish. Versus the one that you're talking about, the Guapo, is a red honey. Again, we're going to ferment it, and then we're going to depulp it, and then we're going to put it straight on the patio to dry. And it's going to literally dry in its own juices. Now, after about 2 days, it's going to have a red tint. If you pick it up, pick it up in your hands, and it's going to stick to it. And if you eat it, it'll taste like peach marmalade. And so it got a nickname, red honey, because it's sticky and sweet like honey, and it's sort of that reddish tint like honey. So the red honey is a nickname that was given to the process. So, but in the process of drying in its own juices, it gets that fruity taste soaks into that bean. And so sometimes some people like Coke, some people like Pepsi. We try to shoot the roast. The roast apparently was not far enough in. It should have been another 15 to 30 seconds because we missed something and you got that sour flavor instead of a light hint of fruit. And so according to when you bought it, if you bought it before 30 days ago, that was lot, we're into lot 15. The profiles will change a little bit. No, the honey is lot 32, not important. But we've changed lots recently. They're all going to be pretty close. But lot 32 is a red honey, which will be called Gringo. But if you don't like the fruit, I personally like the canal washed, which is what I'm drinking right now. Mm-hmm. It's a different variety, but you've got the 2 exact same coffees that possibly could have come from the same lot out in the field. They're the same variety, processed 2 different ways. So I think the best thing would be is we ship you some El Gringo, and that will be the washed, the same variety that you've had. But then I want to ship you I've got one. It's Heirloom Perinema. It's lot P5L. And what that means is Perinema, the 5th picking, and L means washed. And so it'll be a washed Perinema and a washed Lempira. I'll send you those 2 to try. So all right. When we get off tonight, shoot me your name and address, and I'll, if we've shipped to you before, you should be on there. But I don't think anybody's around tomorrow, but the guys, because the weather's so bad. But one day this week when they get in, I'll get them to ship that out to you, and you can try those. And just stay away from a honey process because those are going to be fruity. So and so it'll say on the bag whether it's red honey. So like right now, my Marciesa is a honey process, and the Perinema is a wash.
Yeah.
And then also have a yellow Bourbon that's washed, but it's 3 points lower than the Perinema. The Perinema right now is like an 86.5, which is a really good coffee. Hey, Jared, you've got your mic turned off, I think. I've been trying to turn it on, and you're welcome to turn your video on, and so we can see you, but it's either way.
Yeah, I'm trying to put kids down, man, so it's a little noisy over here.
No, it's no problem. That's the only good thing about being here in Honduras by myself is it's quiet. Tuesday, my family gets here, so I think it's going to be, go back to the old days of chaos, which I definitely miss when they're gone. But there's also something to be said for peace and quiet. Now, Jared, do you roast or you do the buy roasted coffee? Uh-oh. Can you hear me, Jared? If you can't get your mic on, I can see your comments.
Yeah, so I roast. I'm sorry, my screen messed up on me, and I'm on
Okay.
my
What do you roast on?
So I've got a fleet of B-Moores. I've got some 1600s, some 2000s, some 2200s.
But when I first started roasting, one of my customers gave me, I would guess it was the original 1600. You couldn't modify the times or anything. All you could do was pick a program and then add time to a certain point. And then the AB came out, or the Plus came out, and then now I think there's the AB, and then I've seen a lot of people have the 2000s. But at that point, I switched over to a drum sample roaster, and I got the Hucky 500. I'm trying to make me a coffee while I talk. Now, Seth is on. He's a coffee drinker, got an espresso machine. What methods do you normally do your coffee with, Seth?
So it has been more recent that we got that espresso machine, so we're pulling shots. But we've done AeroPress and pour over. Yeah, those two primarily.
Well, I never got much into my AeroPress. The reason being, the first one I bought when I didn't know what I was doing, I bought this, which if I ask you what this was, you would say it's an AeroPress, but it's actually an air press. So it's a Chinese knockoff where they stole the patent or stole the design from AeroPress and started making a knockoff. And in order to do a pot, I had to first put this plunger in hot water for a minute or two and let it swell up. Otherwise, just the coffee would just pour right past it. And it was such a pain, I never used it much. But this year, a couple of little gifts, and one of them was this clear AeroPress and the metal screen. And I love the metal screen. And I didn't realize till I started reading the directions and I opened it up completely. There was actually two metal screens in there. And so they're two different, what would you call them? I don't know. They're two different size holes. I forget what you would call that. But I haven't played with the other one much. But I've enjoyed using it because I just run that filter under the hot water and dry it and throw it right back on the shelf. And this thing right here presses so nice and slow. And it really presses down nice when you're done. And so it's been a lot of fun to use. And then they gave me this thing here. Let me get it in focus. It's the flow control cap. Have you seen that?
The video is slow and I'm not able to see what you're showing.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like your video is frozen on the end.
It's called an AeroPress flow control cap.
Mm-hmm.
And So instead of having like a little curtain, everything just comes out one hole and it comes out really fast. So it's not my favorite thing, but I love the AeroPress itself. And I've got my espresso machine is not great. It's an old commercial espresso machine made in Italy, but it just doesn't do a very good espresso. So I haven't gotten into espresso much. But for an espresso machine, if you like fruit, I would do the full natural. I think it might be called the Fruit Bomb, might be one of the descriptions, but Olympira full natural that we have on the website. That's a good one for espresso if you like fruit.
Actually don't. Yeah, I'm not big into the fruit taste.
Right. So if you don't like the fruit, then go with the Perinema Canal washed is what I do, and it works really well. The washed coffees work really well either or. Doing a pour over, doing AeroPress. It's the one coffee that's very versatile. And as far as roasters go, like Jared, it's an easier coffee to roast. Now the Perinema is not an easy coffee to roast. The Limpira is. The washed Limpira is very forgiving. It comes out with a nice color in it. The Perinema is more of a cylinder shaped bean. It's a little bit longer and sort of cylinder shaped. It's a little more dense, so it'd be similar to roasting a pea berry.
The Perinema, so if I'm looking here, it says caramel green apple honey process.
Okay, let me.
Or is that?
No, that won't be what you want. You don't want anything honey, I don't think. Let me make a note. I've got you written down here. And I'll get with Julia. And I know I put some washed Perinema in the roastery before I left. She just I'll get him to roast a batch of the P5L. And don't worry about ordering anything. I'm going to get them to send you a couple different options for you to play with.
Yeah, well, that sounds great. Thank you very much. Yeah, I definitely like to stay away from the fruit because to me, I think a lot of people taste that and they don't taste the sour, and I always do if it's a lighter roast or fruity.
And I was going to say that's what it depends on too. Like you can take a honey process and take it into your City Plus Plus and have that nice chocolatey undernotes and a fruity aftertaste. Mm-hmm. So it really depends on how the bean's roasted. I don't like that personally. I don't like honey because it produces a lot of chaff. But I mean, for your espresso pools and stuff, in my experience, it works really well if you take that. I'm not going to say into the charred category, but just dark enough to where you can get those chocolatey undertones with the light fruity flavors afterwards. So I've got all the coffee brewing equipment. I'm kind of a connoisseur guy. I collect all this stuff, man. Even the old siphon machines.
I gave my siphon away. I never made a good cup of coffee with it. I love using it, but and it's fun to look at. But I just sucked at it. And when I went to barista school, it was a 6-day school, and it was 12, and it was in Spanish here in Honduras. And they said, pick 2 things that you want to work on and improve on. And so I said the siphon and espresso. And so those were 2. I think the pour overs are pretty basic, but those 2 I wanted to work on. And it took 2 days before he would even taste my espresso. He'd look at it, do the crema, and just hand it back to me. And I bet I made 50, 60 shots. And then the second day I started bringing in my full natural Limpira that I grow. And then I could get a lot of crema off of that one. But again, like you were talking about, you get a lot more chafe off the honey. You get an incredible amount of chafe off of a full natural. And that's because the silver skin is thicker.
I tell you what's really cool, though. You can actually take that and melt down candles and drop it into your melted wax and create candles with it, and it smells amazing.
The chafe or what?
Yeah, so that's what I've started experimenting with that, because I'm like, what am I going to do with all this stuff besides fertilizer, right?
Yeah.
So candles is one way. I've actually been able to take candles with that, as well as grind up some beans and throw in it, and it makes an awesome candle. Not a lot of smoke, as you would think, but it does give the. I like the roastery smell, and my wife says it's like smelling something burning, but I like it. So it kind of reminds me of a roastery. So
I know it probably sounds weird, but when I spend the night roasting, I generally come in, take a shower. But if it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I'll just sleep in my clothes. I'm gonna have to get back up in 3 hours, so I just sleep in my clothes, and I enjoy when I wake up, it smells like the roasted coffee. I love that smell. And freshly brewed coffee.
yeah, you're making me want to
little coffee. When I go to they have open markets here in Honduras, and I go walking around looking for little coffee cups. That's generally my Sunday adventure that I do. So I generally bring 4 coffee cups home. I keep 2 and I give 2 to a customer. So remind me end of March when I get back to the States, remind me that you need some coffee cups, because I like giving them away. And these are cool. These are so thick. It's the thickest little cup, and they're just small little cups. So man, it just feels super heavy.
Yeah, it's nice.
And it was $1.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. An American dollar.
Yeah, a real dollar. What my kids call real money.
Oh yeah.
So it was marked $25, but the change rate is probably like $1.03, something like that.
Hell yeah.
But I tell people I'll buy anything for $1. I hope it doesn't affect my life one day. I starved to death because I couldn't buy $1 worth of food. But no, I enjoy coffee cups. I enjoy it more when they give them to me. Free coffee cups are always better. But yeah, people tend to, I've got a couple up here that people have given me, and then we've got our coffee cup that we have online, just with our regular, logo on it. But is our video still frozen?
Ashley, can you tell me what? So you told me about a few of your roasts. Those ones that you mentioned, are any of those going to be good for espresso, or are there some that you would shy away from using as an espresso bean?
And if I think of something else, I'll send that too. But the Lempira washed is going to be similar to what you drank in the Guapo, except for it's not going to have any fruit in it. And then the Perinema is going to be a little more pronounced chocolate, and it's going to be a super clean cup of coffee.
Yeah, I like that.
Those are very versatile, and you can do anything with them. But they'll both be a washed coffee, but they'll be espresso. Anything that does well in my AeroPress, it seems like it does well with espresso.
Right.
So I call the AeroPress like the poor man's espresso.
Yeah.
I can tell you that the Lempira, it pulls a nice shot. There's for a, I'm going to say a 9 ounce, or just do a 1-to-9 ratio. You're going to get about 3% crema on top, which is from a brewing standpoint, that's what you want, especially if you're doing cappuccinos or lattes.
Yeah. And
it gives a really nice color. My wife likes single shots. I don't understand why she does that. They call that the Americanized latte, right? But the double shot gives a nice, deep, rich color, and you're going to get a lot of rich tones out of it. So, and like Ashley said, the washed coffees are a lot more forgiving, especially if you're trying to dial in your espresso machine.
Yeah,
50 shots.
Well,
I mean,
so probably that El Gringo Dark would be a good one to try. And all the shots that we've pulled from that, what is it, El Guapo? I think it's El Guapo Medium, which is the honey process. All the shots have really looked beautiful. They just had more of that soury, fruity aftertaste that I cannot get rid of. So.
Okay, I wrote down for Seth. I wrote down a Gringo Dark, Gringo Medium, and then the Perry Nama washed.
Washed, yeah.
My son is roasting right now, or he was roasting late this afternoon. I'll find out tonight what he roasted, and if he roasted a washed Perry Nama, I can get it in a lot quicker. Otherwise, he'll roast again on Saturday, and I'll make sure that he roasts you one. But it's
yeah, thank you.
I love the washed coffee.
Yeah, I've got to get out of here. I've got somebody coming over in just a minute, but I am curious about this. On your site, you have the Southern Pecan. Are you roasting that, and then it's supposed to be used just like a coffee somehow, or? No,
those are flavored coffees.
They are. So It's not pecans at all.
No, but I tell you what I do have, and I'll send you a bag of it, but you can't ever tell him I did that because no, he's a really good friend of mine. He has a roaster, and he roasts with pecans and pecan shells, and so there's a tiny bit of pecans mixed in his coffee when he roasts it, and he roasts it and on sticks. It's a fire roaster. It goes both ways. And so he does mesquite coffee. He does a couple things like that. Great guy. It's Third Day Seguin in Seguin, Texas. But it's Third Day Coffee, Seguin, Texas. But I hope he's not watching. Avalon is his name. Great guy. Love the guy. I love that guy to death. He's just an awesome guy. Good, solid Christian guy, and helps me. I help him. He comes over and stays at the house, picks up his coffee, and we go out to eat. And he's been to Honduras. I mean, he's come out to the farm. He gave me some the other day, and so if there's some in the shop, I'll have. So you'll get a bag. If you get a bag of black coffee that and it is from another company, you'll know that's it.
All right. Yeah, that
will not be flavored coffee.
Well, yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with Ryan Sundley, I imagine, right? Colleen and Ryan Sundley, the date lady.
Oh yeah.
So they're good friends of ours, and they are who turned me on to your coffee. And we had actually been ordering it kind of through them for a little bit, and so. But we live in Moscow out here, more or less Moscow, in Idaho. So that's how I found out about you guys.
Okay. Yeah. Colleen, they order a lot of stuff, and I love some of their date products and stuff.
Yeah.
I used to bring the dates here to Honduras, and it got sort of, according to which customs guy you saw, they gave me problems a time or two, but man, I love those dates, and I love that date stuff we'll get on the pancakes.
Yeah. They're great. Well, thank you very much, Ashley. I appreciate it. And I'll maybe shoot you an email here, follow up with the call. But I've got to run here. I've got somebody coming right away.
All right, but don't hesitate to remind me, because I'm doing 5 podcasts this week, and and we're getting set. We're going to start picking call on Monday. So we're trying to get a lot of stuff done in the next little bit of time.
Yeah.
But don't hesitate to remind me. But I've got it on my notes, and I'll talk to my wife before I go to bed tonight, and I'll shoot those over to her.
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you, and good to meet you. And hope to talk to you again.
No, I hope so. We do one every Wednesday night. If you'll look us up on Instagram. I post the link every Monday or Tuesday, something like that. I'll start posting it, and you can hop on anytime. Shoot me any questions you have.
Okay.
Just anytime. Hey, thanks for calling, or thanks for logging on.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Jim, is the video still frozen?
For me, yes, sir.
Okay. Do you? So it's probably going to be on my end then, right?
I would assume so. If it was frozen for Seth.
Okay. Well, I just got a different computer, and they brought a new router out, and so now I don't get 5G on my telephone anymore. But I had them run a fiber optic line. We're like 1,000 feet from the road, but they ran it all the way down here. And I've never had trouble with my podcast before, but tonight it just barely shows I'm getting a signal.
Well, that's what's nuts. So you don't know a whole lot about me, and my day job, actually, I've been in IT for 20 years. So roasting coffee was a hobby that I've turned into a business. My late father actually pushed me into that. He's like, "Hey man, this coffee you're roasting, you need to start selling it." I was like, "Okay." No, I do IT for my 8 to 5 or whatever you want to call it. And man, I wish I could make it down there. I was in Costa Rica not that long ago. But yeah, I need to come check out Honduras.
Yeah, It's I've tried to go to Costa Rica about 3 years ago, and they wouldn't let us in. But it's getting pretty bad in Nicaragua. Well, they wouldn't let us into Nicaragua. Costa Rica is fine, but I've got a friend that owns a place down there. We were going to drive down to his place, but the new little Sandinistas or whatever over in Nicaragua, our resident card here in Honduras used to say religious. And so in order to be here, you have to have somebody that supports you. Just like if somebody wants a visa for the United States, somebody's going to have to support them for that visa. So for me to be here long term, I had to have a church support me for the mission work and stuff. And so then my resident card said religious, and Nicaragua wouldn't let anybody in that had anything to do with churches and stuff like that. So we didn't get to go, but I think now I can go. But
I just happened to look up your buddy at Third Day Coffee. I didn't realize back in September I was in Austin. I didn't realize I was that close to somebody you knew. I was like, man, I wish I would have known. I would have hop skipped down there and checked them out. But
he doesn't have a storefront yet, but he'll always let you come by his roastery. He just bought an ambulance, and he's converting that into an emergency caffeine something. I forget what he called it. But he bought a big wide body ambulance. It's going to be pretty nice. So yeah, I hope everything he does turns to gold. He really helps out one of my guys on the farm here. Everything my guy Santos produces, Jose buys it, and so I help them with fertilizer and some stuff like that. I have a bank here on the farm. We actually have 2 separate banks. And so Santos came to me one day. Well, first of all, his dad died, and all the kids got a little tiny farm. And so I went to his house one time, and we were helping him do some projects on his house. And we saw that he had a farm. And so then we started giving him better varieties of coffee and started helping him get onto a better fertilizing program and get that little farm up and running a little bit better and get it fully planted. And he came to me one day and said his sister got married. And here, once you marry a man, the man sort of controls everything. And if he wants to sell it, he can sell it. And so this guy was going to sell the farm, and his sister couldn't stop him. And so he said, I want to buy it, but I don't have any money. And I said, well, I don't have any money either, but lucky enough, it's small enough that we can swing it. So we helped him finance the farm, and he paid on it like crazy. And within 6 months, he had it paid down halfway. And it was the first year we had a big crop of coffee, and so we were able to forgive the loan. And when his other sister decided to sell her farm, we did the same thing. We financed it again. And so he's got 3 tiny farms right now. And so this year was the first year that his Perinema that we helped him plant was in production. But Jose and his wife Connie, they flew up here from Texas, spent a week or so, and they actually got to plant coffee. So I give away the extra plants that we have every year. So you never know how many plants you need to plant every year. And so what's left over, we just give them away. And so the workers have a list of how many they need. And then I go by about how many they get. But according to how many I have, I divide that by the size of their farm and by how many they need. And they all get an equal portion, percentage wise, of what we have, according to their size farm, with the exception of somebody that only has one farm and there's no plants on it, they get priority. But long story short, we've got all those farms planted. At least twice that I know of, Jose has paid for all the fertilizer on Santos's farm. He paid for all the labor to come out and plant those plants that I donated that year. And then he got out there and, he and Connie got out there and actually dug holes and planted it. And so, but yeah, last year he had custom made trucker hats with leather patches and I've already had a PDF logo for Finca Santos. And so he took that, had it laser etched into or laser burnt into a leather patch and put it on a trucker hat for Santos. So he's really been nice to Santos and he's helped them a couple times. And
that's really cool, man. It's nice to know the story behind it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
it's one thing. So the coffee that I sell, it's one thing to be like, okay, it came from, this country and here's the owner of the farm. And a lot of my customers like the direct from the farmer that I'm giving them. But it's also really neat to know that like the actual history behind the bean. And the fact that like the mission you guys do, that speaks worlds to me. And, it's just, I enjoy what you guys do and I enjoy supporting what you guys do as well.
Well, I appreciate that. We've, every once in a while you have to deal with a guy that says, you're going to have to get reasonable on your prices and we would buy some coffee. But, thank the Lord, so far we hadn't. Even some of the bigger customers we have. Sorry, I just took a bite again. I love eating chocolate with my coffee, but like there's a big customer that has a standing order for 30 bags every year. He's actually let me look up on his computer the price that he pays me and the price that he's buying coffee from Royal and Olam. It's just daylight and dark difference. And so this year, all of our flavored coffee, which you could take a 60-point coffee and dump caramel macchiato into it, and it's going to freaking taste like caramel macchiato, And so so far we've been using specialty grade coffee because thank God every bit of our coffee has hit the specialty grade line. We've been flavoring specialty grade coffee with Jamaica Me Crazy because we just didn't have any other options. And so this guy here, he gets a Brazilian coffee and he buys in such volumes. He's getting it for like $2.25 a pound. And so it's like a 73-point coffee, which your customers aren't going to be thrilled with. But if I dump Jamaica Me Crazy in it or pumpkin spice in it, it's going to taste just like pumpkin spice. Customers are going to love it. And everybody's happy. And I don't have to ruin an 84-point coffee, by dumping pumpkin spice onto it.
Right.
So, and I don't have a decaf on the farm. So I think right now we're paying $3.10 is what I'm paying for my Colombian decaf. So this coming season, when I get back in March, we're going to start offering guys like you some discounted coffees like that, because we're basically making from 80 cents to $1.10 a pound on the green coffee that we. I could probably get you a better price on decaf, and so I'm just going to start buying a couple bags from him every year and just sell it online.
Yeah, for me, it's really difficult to find a good decaf, and strangely enough, I've had more requests for decaf recently than I've ever had, and I've tried to go direct from farmer for decaf, but it seems like a lot of the suppliers are through the, I guess, the organizations, some other big organizations. And I can't find anything that has a decent cupping score. I've tried Swiss water, I've tried mountain water, and I can't get any kind of good extraction, pour over drip coffee or even espresso pools. I can't get anything that's halfway decent. And I know how to roast this stuff. It's not coming out like I would anticipate. Cupping score is, like in the mid 50s, which is terrible.
Yeah. Have you ever looked at an actual cupping sheet? I don't know if I have one here. I mean, literally, you get 50 when you walk through the door and convince them it's coffee, and it's all based on that 50 score from that point up. So you have to 50, man. Now, we do experimental lots, and we'll torture the coffee. 3 years ago, I took a full natural, and I put it in bags, and I fermented it in the sun. And I took a black piece of plastic and laid it on the ground, so we'd radiate some heat. I left a 1 foot spacing between all those 100-pound bags. And I numbered the bags 1, 2, 3, 4. So every hour, the guys went out and rolled each bag from number 1 to number 2, so that I got an even sun time on all the bags. I wanted to get it really hot. In theory, I thought I was really going to ferment it, get my heat up, but in theory, all I did was ruin a bunch of coffee. And so the cupper, just as a joke, gave me a 30. But 50 is generally the lowest score you can get. And so he gave me a 30, and on the cupping score, the flavor notes, he said chemical and pharmaceutical. Those were his two notes on there. And he just thought it was hilarious. I thought I was going to cry until I realized it was just a tiny lot of like 187 pounds of coffee. But a lot of people don't realize different farms, different beans. My Mario Hipe has a nickname of elephant bean. The Marciesa that I grow is a small bean. But in general, rough numbers, 8.25 pounds of coffee in the cherry make 1 pound of roasted coffee. And so when I had 187 pounds of green coffee, you're talking about 12 or 1,300 pounds of coffee in the cherry. Mm-hmm. And so I ruined a crap load of coffee. It's hard to do little tiny micro lots because you need to do apples to apples. And so if I've got this tiny little 10-pound micro lot, when they're drying it, it's going to be a 1/4 inch of coffee on the patio. Mm-hmm. Versus when I am actually got a big lot of 8,000, 10,000 pounds, you're talking about 3 inches to 4 inches thick on the patio. And so it's two completely different drying methods. When you have the exact same coffee, same process on the same patio, and one of them's this thick of coffee and the other one's this thick. The thinner one is going to dry like crazy, but the thicker one is going to get turned over more and more easily. So it's not apples to apples. So when we do a test light, we have to do it in a fairly large area. And even that, 1,200 pounds of coffee is not really. And we'll get out there and we'll frame up with 2x4s. We'll just frame up a little area and dump the coffee inside of it so that, it's contained and we can keep it at a certain depth so that it doesn't get spread out any more than the other. We try to keep everything as detail oriented as possible. We keep notes at least once a day, if not more, on what the temperature is, what the climate is. But if anything drastic happens, like if anything comes over the southern mountain that we're on, it's if as soon as you hear a crack of lightning or see a thundercloud, there's neighbors that'll start running over to our farm and help us raking up the coffee and getting it off the patio because you got 15 minutes and it's fixing a storm. Versus we're on this front of this mountain, I can see for 50 miles off my back porch. So if it's coming from any of the other directions, I can see it coming, and we got plenty of time to prep. But as we're doing moisture tests, there's also a gauge that tests humidity. And so you'll watch that humidity start jumping up, and you'll know that there's a storm somewhere within 10 or 15 miles and it's blowing towards us. And so we'll start making notes. The humidity started jumping about 1 o'clock, and then by 4 it's raining, and then it rained for the next 12 hours. And so we keep, pretty detailed notes. Monday morning at 5 o'clock, there's going to be a couple of guys out on the farm with refractometers. I'll send them out Saturday to start doing the same thing, and they'll do sugar tests on the coffee to see which lots have the highest sugar. And then Monday morning we'll hit them again real quick, and then at 7 o'clock Monday morning we start picking, and that sugar will tell us which lot to start picking in, which lot to go to next, and then all the reports will have that, have all those as much detailed information as possible on them. I'm going to grab a sheet real quick because I'm sure I'm forgetting something.
No worries. And Ashley, you can still hear me, right?
Say that again.
I was going to say you can still hear me. I was going to talk when you left. You said, I've purchased your tea in the past, and I don't know exactly what lot it came from, but I have customers now that, the great COVID scare of 2020, people got COVID, and it messed up their taste buds for coffee. Like they can't drink coffee anymore. It tastes nasty to them. It doesn't matter how I roast it, prepare it. It doesn't matter. So I started prepping them tea because they said they could do tea. And I started doing your Cascara tea, and they love it. I sent you this in the email, but I was curious of the different varieties of coffee that you had. Will you start selling those different varieties, and are there different flavor notes with that? I'm still kind of new in the tea market. I'm just trying to learn a little bit more, and I didn't know if you had plans to expand that out.
Tea, we generally age the tea for a year to 18 months before we start selling it. It actually has such harder fruit notes when you let it age like that. And so Anna and I just did a cupping when I was here in November of the teas, and there's 2 lots. I think it's lot 27 and lot 29 that really popped, and it seemed really nice. One of our biggest problems, the reason I don't have like all the different options of coffee online at the same time, is we're in that little garage, and it's 24 by 28. Mm-hmm. And so we started getting the Gamma buckets with the plastic food grade buckets with the Gamma lids on it. And so normally tea is really hit or miss, but we've been playing with it for the last 4 years, and we know which varieties do best. The yellow Catuai, the yellow Bourbon don't do well at all. The Ica 2 has a really strong, twice we've got cupping notes of tobacco, but not in a bad sense, which I find that hard to believe. But and so the lighter, milder teas tend to be the Perinemas, the Marciesas, and the Lempiras. And so we've started. Before we just threw the pulpa out there, the cherry, and we just sort of dried it, and it was just flipping a coin. And after it aged for 6 months, then we would cup it, and then we'd say yay or nay and send it in, and it all got put in the bags. And people liked it, people bought it. But now, like you're talking about, people are getting more specific with it. We sort of put it on hold for right now. We're working out a deal with K-State in Kansas. They do a lot of testing, and so they're going to they've never done it before, so I was hoping they'd do it for free, but that ain't going to happen. So I want them to test the antioxidants, because a lot of the information I've read says it's really high in antioxidants. Some reports say 6 times higher than blueberries. But then some people like Bill, I don't know if you're watching Bill chime in, Bill's wife swears that it's got more caffeine than coffee. I think it's got quite a bit of caffeine in it, but some reports say as low as 20% of, compared to a cup of coffee. I know that when we're cupping, at the end of the day, I can feel the hair growing on the back of my neck. But, you cup 40 of anything and you're going to be pretty wound up.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're sort of in March or April is going to be when we really start pushing. We're still a pretty small outfit. A lot of people think we're this giant coffee farm. Somebody asked me the other day, do I fly in my own private plane when I come here? Yeah, I just never get the rubber band tight enough to get me off the ground yet. But yeah, I own my own plane for sure. No, if I ever play the lottery and win the lottery, I'm for sure getting me a twin and I'm going to start flying down here. But we're still fairly small. We have a plan on the books now. When we get back, I'm going to put 3 40-foot shipping containers together, and then I'm going to build a high-pitch roof over the top of it, and then that's going to have storage in it. It'll have the workers' break room. Will all be upstairs, but then we're going to cut the inner walls out of that, and so we'll end up with a 24 by 40 roastery when we're done, made out of shipping containers. Then we're going to have a big front porch on the front and back. I've got a delivery truck that we're going to, it's called a cab over. It's an Isuzu NPR. It's a cab over truck. So we're going to convert that into a coffee truck. It's got an 8 by 14 box on it that's 8 foot tall. And so, maybe 7 foot tall. But we're going to convert that into a mobile coffee thing for events. It's a fairly big thing that we have on the books, but we're hopefully within the next year, we'll be out of debt. And so then we're going to go back to the bank and borrow a whole bunch of money and get that built. But right now, basically we're in a 70-year-old garage. We live in a 123-year-old house. And there's a 70-year-old garage that during COVID, I converted into our roastery. And it's pretty small, and it's really difficult when we have like events, like where we do fundraisers and somebody orders 500 pounds of coffee. We're just tripping over each other, And so over the last couple of years, I've been picking up a couple of Wayfield machines, a couple of little conveyor sealers. I've got 2 foot pedal sealers. I've got a beautiful bank of 7 grinders. We've got everything set up so that when we're poised to strike, so to speak. So it'll be great when we get to the point where we can build this roastery. And I think it's like 4 months to do the build is what we're planning on. And we'll do it all ourselves. So once that happens, that's going to be on the main road. We're on the old family farm. So the back of the farm actually butts up to a highway, a small highway that links 2, pretty good sized towns together. So it's got a lot of traffic. So I think once we do that, then we're going to get into a little micro coffee shop with about 6 tables in it. And then we'll have the roastery. So I think at that point, we'll get more foot traffic. A general week for us, if we have 10 people that walk in and buy coffee, that's a pretty good week for us. The majority of what we do is ship it out online.
Right.
And so at that point, my hope is that we can do, and the flavoring helps out a lot. I know a lot of roasters that you're going to talk to are going to look down on people flavoring. But what it's done for me is it's let me expand my offerings. So my roaster will, the minimum batch is 15 pounds. I can do 10 or 12, but it doesn't hit the probe. And so my first crack temperature is not going to be 393 like it normally is. Because there's not enough coffee bunching up on the probe to get a true reading. Right. And so 15 pounds is my minimum batch. I've done as much as 32. But so let's just say 15 pounds is your minimum batch, and you're going to yield, 12 pounds of coffee, 12 and a half pounds of coffee from that. So I grow 7 different varieties of coffee. I think Bourbon, Catuai, Icatu, Lempira, Marsellesa, Perinema, and there's something else I forgot about. 6 to 7 varieties of coffee. We're going to process 2 or 3 different ways. So if we processed everything 3 ways, you're talking about 18 to 21 different coffees that we would offer at one time. And that's just almost impossible without a big volume of people buying. So having said that, you hit that 3 to 5 week period, you don't want that coffee sitting on the shelf and put your name on it. That's when you want to get rid of it. Before that, after 5 weeks, it's starting to go down. So my goal is, what we've done is we've limited how much coffee that we have on the shelf. So, and we roast according to what we can sell in a week, basically. But now that I've started doing, I think I do a caramel macchiato. I rotate that back and forth with a salted caramel and a caramel macchiato. I do a southern pecan. I do a rompopo. I do caramel rum crunch and Jamaica Me Crazy. So if I try to put a bourbon on the shelf, which is an amazing coffee, and it doesn't sell, then after, when it starts hitting getting anywhere near 2 months, I can dump it in a bucket, flavor it, and sell it for the exact same price. So I haven't lost anything. So next year or later this year, April-ish, we're going to expand how many flavored coffees we offer, because you can do a pound of flavored coffee. I mean, I can flavor 12 ounces if I want to. So it's going to let me carry more coffees. And so my goal would be to carry like 15 different options when they walk through the door, and then have about 8 or 10 flavored options. And then I'll be able to carry, I think this year I've got Perinema, Marciesa, Lempira, Ica 2. I've got a tiny bit of Mario Hipe, all in the teas, in the coffee cherry tea. But I generally only carry one variety at a time, just because, I bag it up in little bags and keep that on the shelf, because it's got an amazing shelf life. We just recupped the 2019s that we have on the shelf here on the farm, and they were great. I couldn't tell anything that was wrong with them. The only problem we had was somebody didn't put a bag of coffee, for whatever reason, they didn't put it in a Grain Pro. So it's been sitting in the bodega all this time, not in a Grain Pro. And it was molded, just open it up and like it's shot. So I dumped it into a Grain Pro, put it in a bag, and we hung it, that's what we use for our punching bag out in the workout room. But yeah, the goal is to carry more options, and a few more blends. It's not online yet, but on the roasted side, my wife's name is Julia. Her middle name is actually Joe, J-O. So we're going to have a blend called Julia's Joe. I've got the espresso blend. And then I've got Eli Mountain blend. And then I've got a breakfast blend, or our blends. I'd like to get 1 or 2 more blends. And I've got a couple of proprietary blends. There's a couple of coffee shops that want their own thing. And so they've got their own blends, but we don't sell those. Just when they order it, we mix it up according, and they've got their own, the only one in the world blends. But, for somebody your size, roastery, I need to get you set up with, Pedro doesn't have a buyer. And I think Juan Carlos doesn't have a buyer. Both those are guys that we finance farms for, and we gave them coffee, we gave them fertilizer, everything they need to get the farm up and running. Pedro's going to have a pretty good production this year. And when I say that, this will be his first picking off his new farm. We just helped him. He'll probably have 100, 120 pounds of coffee. So that would be somebody that you could do, and you don't have to buy all the coffee at one time. I'll just throw the bag on the shelf, and you can just be the only one that sells Pedro's coffee. And a picture of Pedro and his family, he is one of the best guys I know. You ask him something, it's always yes. I stick him out on a farm we rent out in the middle of nowhere for a month. And he's just happy as a pea in a pod, or however you say it. He's just a good guy. realizes that there's a great opportunity for him, and he takes it and makes it. We helped him plant his first farm that he already had. We helped him finance and plant the second farm. I had a bunch of fertilizer, which fertilizer doesn't last from one fertilizing to the next because of our humidity here. And so he was wanting to buy 6 bags of fertilizer. And again, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. But he was wanting to buy 6 bags. And we walked into the bodega and there was 40 something bags of coffee just sitting there. And so he's got a brother, Santiago. So I said, well, call Santiago and see how many he needs. And I think they needed 14 100-pound bags of fertilizer to fertilize all 3 of their farms, because they're little farms. And so I said, we'll just give it to you, and that's just something that I am happy to be able to do. And it's not going to affect my livelihood. I forget what a bag of fertilizer costs, but it's extremely expensive since the war in Russia, because that's where we used to get it from. But maybe 50 or 60 bucks a bag, something like that. But it helped him greatly. But I'll get you a picture of him. He's just a humble looking dude. I tell you what, if you'll go back on my Instagram account about a month, you'll see an interview with between me and Pedro. He's just a humble little guy. We've had him doing light work for the last 2 years because he's had this massive hernia, and the government socialized medicine wouldn't fix it until it ruptured, and he finally found a group that came in that would fix it without it. But he's been working every day, and can't lift hardly anything, but he's got. And it's an amazing interview. If you'll watch that interview, you'll really get to know a guy real quick talking to Pedro.
I got you. Yeah, I'll check it out.
But that would be an option for you. You could buy the coffee, and we don't take any part of the coffee. It costs about 62 cents to ship it to the United States, and he pays me that 62 cents, and then all the rest of whatever you pay for the coffee goes straight to him. And what we do is, I don't know how much coffee you're selling a month, but if you can't buy 160 pounds of coffee, when the coffee hits the States, I go ahead and pay him for it. Whatever price we think is fair to him, we go ahead and pay him that coffee for this coffee. And then you can just buy it any portions you want. But look over his picture, see if that's a good fit. If not, I'm meeting with a girl. Her name is Danya on Sunday, and her family has a farm, and her dad left. And so it's basically her and her mom run the farm. So she might be a coffee that we could fix you up with. But again, I haven't seen the farm and I haven't tried the coffee with her.
I gotcha.
But it would be something catchy, to market to your customers, and you could directly have a relationship with him. And I like to keep it direct trade. Once they get big enough to handle money, then it costs you, normally an international transfer is like $30. So in the future, you'd eat that extra $30 and you would deposit the money directly into his bank account. Once you get to the point where you're buying, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 bags a year,
Yeah.
But no, just something to think about. And that's what we're trying to do, is pair these guys up with a roaster that can grow with their farms as we help them get more farms.
Absolutely. As I grow, I guess I could grow with your farmers as well.
Yeah, and that's the plan. Whole idea. And when you said you had a bank of B-Mores, it made me think of Kerry Sanders. He owns Sanders Brothers Coffee. I've never understood the name because there's no brothers in it. It's just he and his son and his wife. But you name it whatever you want to name it. But when I first met him, I literally drove from Alamo, Tennessee to Murfreesboro. It's like probably a 3-hour drive. And I sold him 30 pounds of green coffee. Because my goal when I first started, the first 2 years, I met every customer that I sold coffee from. And when I left there, I went to Kentucky and Wisconsin. And I think in Wisconsin, I sold 1 bag of coffee. In Kentucky, I sold 8. And I was so tickled to sell the 8. The guy said, I want to buy your natural. And I've got this box truck and I had like 40 bags of coffee in it. And he wanted to buy 8 bags. And that's all the natural I had was 8 bags. So then I pissed off every other customer because I had no more natural, So when I drove all the way up there in the middle of the night, we're like hanging a set of scales and I'm weighing him out, the coffee. But he had 1 bee more the first year. The second year, he had 2 or 3 more. And then now he's built like a roastery, a small roastery, and he's got one of those Artisan X that he roasts on. And then now he bought a coffee trailer. So he does events and things like that. So, that's always been our goal, was to grow with the customer. And so,
I've got a small bank of their modified B-Mores. I've got temp probes and stuff inside of them. My plan for maybe later this year is to move to a LNG style 5 kilo. But I'm still working out. So I've got some contacts with some local FFA folks that are really good with welding and engineering. So I was trying to actually farm some of this out to the kids and see, put their engineering minds to work to see if they can make something happen. Just to give it, trying to give back to the community a little bit, and just I guess trying to stay local. I mean, I've got a local potter. You were talking about cups earlier. I've got a local potter that makes my mugs. Basically trying to keep a small business, man, and keep it local. I mean, I know you're not technically local, being in Honduras, but I mean, you're from Alamo. So, I mean, that's pretty local to me.
Yeah. My roastery is in Mound Ridge, Kansas. And then I store all of our coffee in Kansas. So, being in that little town, definitely, we're getting that buy local vibe, because there's a lot of people that, come through the door and buy coffee just because it's local.
Yeah, and I will tell you this, that my business over the past 3 months has really ramped up. So, I mean, I'm looking like over right before Christmas, I roasted right at 100 pounds. And for a one-man band and say 3 B-Mores, it takes a long time and a lot of maintenance. So
I didn't think about the maintenance side of the B-Mores. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a lot of cleaning, but, I've been in and out of these machines. I actually know Joe Bem, who designed and created these machines. If you wouldn't mind keeping him in your prayers, he's dealing with a whole bunch of cancer problems right now.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
Yeah,
he used to text me a lot, and I haven't seen him be very active here lately, for the last year or so. Even.
Yeah, I mean, he used to travel all the time, and I think he's staying at the house for the most part. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I never thought that this would grow to what it is. I started out, like you said, I started out with a small 1600 and was playing around with it, and then it just grew into what this thing is. And then everybody looks to me for coffee now, and I'm like, okay, I guess I can be that guy.
And it makes a difference. You're talking about a 5K. You're talking about cranking out, a minimum of 8 pounds every 12 to 15 minutes. So you're talking about 100 pounds of coffee you could roast in a couple hours.
Right. It's going to be a big change for me though, because I'm used to the electric heat and how it fluctuates, and going to gas, it's instant heat, instant right there, and trying to, I guess, feel that out. So I'm gonna have to weigh some coffee. I hate to do that because good coffee is hard to come by. But feeling out that machine, I mean, when you tune in an espresso machine, I mean, you're pulling probably 15, 20 shots to get it right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not saying I waste all of that coffee, because we try to utilize it elsewhere, but, the same instance, I'm sitting there, I'm like, that hurts me. Right. Cause like I said, good coffee is hard to get.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Well, like last year, we had 2 bags of coffee that we did that anaerobic fermentation on.
Mhm.
And apparently that works better on either full naturals, but most people are doing it on washed. And the coffee cup to 74. When you're looking in the range of coffee, it's good and very good, or 70 to 75 is good, and then very good is 76 to 79 or something like that. So it's still a good or very good. It was in that range. And so there was 2 full bags of that coffee. And so I said, well, I'll save it for, flavoring. But I went ahead and roasted some of it. And man, it is, and it's a solid 74 point coffee. And it's just daylight and dark difference between a 74 coffee and an 80 anything.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think I got a pretty good roast on it, but I just couldn't drink it. I was like, well, I'm just not going to drink it, And even when I flavored it, I don't like flavored coffees anyway. But nobody complained about it. I was a little worried, so I gave away a bunch of samples at the beginning, and nobody complained about it. So then I went ahead and flavored. But I've still got a bag of that coffee somewhere. So if you do get your 5K, let me know, and I can send you a bunch of that. And then you can at least get your color consistency and your batch size. I don't care if it's this 5K or not. If you ever listen to Roaster Joe,
right.
There's a sweet spot, and it's 70 to 80%. When I bought this roaster I've got now, I bought it here in Honduras and shipped it to the States. He built it as an 80-pound roaster.
Wow.
And he did. He shoved 80 pounds in that bad boy. It took an hour and 15 minutes to roast it. But, yeah. But he was tickled about it, But then when you turn around and you go to you put it down to 22 to 25 pounds per batch, I think at 24 pounds, I end up averaging 76 pounds of green per hour. Which is going to be about 64 or 62 pounds of roasted coffee coming out per hour when I do a 25-pound batch or something like that. But there's so much learning curve. My first batch of coffee, I preheat for 15 minutes, but my first batch of coffee is going to be 20 pounds. Then I'll roast a batch or 2 at 20, and then I'll do a batch or 2 at 22. And that 5th batch, I'll jump up to 25 pounds. And then I'll roast everything else for the rest of the night, 25 pounds. And that sucker is going to be so consistent, it's not even funny. But it takes a little while. If you just start out throwing 25 pounds in there, you're going to end up with an 18-minute roast, And so
you'll end up with a baked. I mean, you'll bake them beans.
You're gonna bake it. But and then again, I roast the coffee. So we did a fundraiser for an elementary school, and when I talked to them, and I knew the company that they roasted for, that used to help them with the fundraiser. I knew who they were, and I said, what kind of numbers did you guys do? And they said, we did like 280 pounds. The last year they went with that other guy. And so I said, okay, well, let's, I gave them a price for it. And I said, we really wanted to help them out. So I sold them coffee in a bag delivered for $7.50 a pound.
Wow.
And, because it was a elementary school in where we live. And so I said, we're just going to help them out. And so that we've done that same price for the last 4 years. But the first year they sold 460 pounds of coffee.
Oof.
Last year they sold 777 pounds of coffee and 2,000 K-cups. This year they sold 854 pounds of coffee, 3,000 and something K-cups. I just want to say for the record, I hate K-cups.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree.
But this year we're going to buy there's a machine, I forget, so far everything I've seen is made in China. So it's like a $7,000 machine, and I forget what the production on it is, but it'll allow you to buy the K-cups that aren't from iFeel. Have you used the iFeel cups?
Yeah, I priced out the what do you call it, the sealant machine myself, and as small as an outfit as I am, and the money that it would take to get that cost of entry into that field, I'm like, I'm going to take those funds and throw toward a roaster.
Yeah. Well, where you're at, yeah, I would say definitely. But I think this year we've sold 6,100 K-Cups, during 2023. So I've got to sit down and do the math, because the biggest thing is you can buy a crap load of those other cups that don't have the, hinge top on them.
Right.
You can buy a crap load of those and get them for like 8 cents a piece. If you buy a crap load of the iFeel, because we're buying, I think there's 1,440 or something like that K-Cups in a case, and we're buying 6 to 7 cases a year, and we're paying 26 cents a K-Cup. So I've just got to do the math on how many K-Cups we're selling, and the difference between the 26 cents and the other, and the labor. It takes a long time to fill all those cups. And when that little elementary school was just selling a couple hundred K-Cups, well, we filled them ourselves. This year when they had 3,000, we had to bring 2 people in at $18 an hour, and it made a big difference. And then one of the Wayfield machines died, and so then we're at half production. And so, they're running 8 hours, and when they leave, I'm doing another 8 hours, and just trying to get these 3,000 K-Cups done for that one order. So I'll sort of do the math on those and just see if it's worth spending $7,000 on a machine. And again,
the ones I was looking at were 2 at a time to seal, and it was like $4,200 or something like that.
Well, there's one made by Buckeye or something out of Arizona. That was an American-made one I found, and they're like $2,800. And I think they do 4 at a time. But you throw the cups in, and it fills the 4 cups, and then you pull it out, and you drop 4 tops on, and then you throw it back in, and it seals the 4. I think that's the way the Buckeye works. So I don't know how fast you could do that. I watched the video a couple times, but again, I need to time it and really see if it looks like, it's feasible. But the difference between spending $2,800 on that one and spending $7,000 on the other one, that'll do, a crap load of K-Cups per hour. It's a little more than double the money for probably 7 or 8 times faster. So I just got a lot of math to do to see if it's worth it.
Yep.
And the other thing that pissed me off on the K-Cups, and I'm really using the word pissed off a lot tonight, but, we had an order last year for 2,000 K-Cups. So I told Julia, I said, just, buy a bunch of cases. So she went in, figured out how many cases 2,000 K-Cups were, bought a couple of cases. We use them, we shove them, we shove the little K-Cup boxes on the bottom shelf. We fill the other shelves with K-Cups, a dozen at a time. And everybody's happy. And then we started running low on K-Cups. She just orders a couple more cases. All of a sudden this year, I said, well, let's use up everything we got, because it's really quick. iFeel's really good about sending K-Cups pretty quick. We get them 4 or 5 days later. And so I don't have to worry about ordering a month ahead or something. So anyway, I said, let's finish out all of our K-Cups. Well, all of a sudden, Leah comes in and says, we got like a couple of hundred K-Cups, but no boxes. So if you look on the iFeel website, when you buy 1,420 or 1,440 K-Cups in a case, they send you 100 boxes, which does 1,200 K-Cups. Why? And when I asked the woman, I said, I'm really upset because we bought thousands of dollars worth of cups from you guys. And it's my fault because I should buying this stuff. I should be checking this stuff out, as I've been buying from you for 3 years. And it's just now caught up that we've got like 1,500 K-Cups on the shelf and we got no boxes. He's like, oh, we can sell you boxes for $1 a piece. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't you put, what would it be? An extra 12 or 14 boxes. Why wouldn't you sell the same amount of boxes that would fill the amount of K-Cups? And she said, well, we're just trying our best to help you guys out. And I'm like, well, trying your best would be selling me enough boxes to fill the case that you sold me. And so finally I got them to sell me enough cases. They dropped the price to 50 cents that I could fill all the extra K-Cups that I had. So she sold me 200 boxes at 50 cents a piece. And she said it was a one-time deal. And I'm like, well, this is the last time we're ever going to buy K-Cups from you guys. So I hope I don't have to eat my words. But that really seemed like poor business, planning or whatever to me.
Right.
But I haven't found anywhere else that has a better deal on K-Cups.
Yeah.
One company sells them for 8 cents, the other sells them for 26. That's a pretty big gap.
I'm still looking to get into that market because a lot of people have the single serve Keurig style. To me, it's the brewing method for the water that comes out of the machine is so unpredictable as far as when the temp of the water touches the grounds, that once you have had a precision brewer, you'll never ever go to anything else.
Yeah. Well, when I open the new roastery, which I'm hoping that'll happen, my idea is I've got a contract with Barraza. I've got a contract with Simply Good Coffee. Have you ever seen their machines?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I wanted something in a lower end that would produce a pretty good cup of coffee. And they were at the CoffeeCon Expo this year in Chicago. And the thing has a nice little shower head. It makes a nice little thing of coffee, and so it's not exactly a pour over, but they're $179. And so I feel like it's a pretty good machine for the price. So
if I remember correctly, it looks very similar to a Bonavita or
what's the other? Exactly. There's one that's right at 300, 275 to 300. Oh man,
it's the same style of setup as the
it's very
Rebel.
Yeah,
Rebel's got one that kind of looks like that.
And so they're all good machines, but I feel like my customer base is going to be more towards that. And so we signed up where it'll be drop shipped, but then I've ordered a couple of them to have, in the store so that somebody could buy them. If you put in an order, we're hoping, we're trying to figure out, because you'll make $40 selling it. And so we're hoping that we're figuring most people are going to order coffee and a machine all at the same time. So if you order a machine, we were going to give you $20 worth of free coffee, and so I just want to have more options on my website to draw people in from different directions. And so I want to start carrying a couple brew methods for the coffee cherry tea. One thing we started selling, I call it my Honduran V60. And those things are so cool. But if you go to you probably saw some of these if you went to people's homes in Costa Rica. It's a Polidora. I think that's right. Coladora. I get them for like 50 cents, sell them for $2 on the website, but I call it my Honduran V60. Well, I've got a guy who's making me, he's going to slot the little thing where you can slide this in it. And then there'll be a place for a little small, like your V60 kettle or something to go under it, to where you could do like some type of a pour over with it. And he's going to make those things for me for like $8 a piece. And when we ship it, there'll be enough room in his little wooden thing that he's building. We'll be able to put 2 12-ounce things of coffee in there with it, and have some just little gift baskets, gift boxes. I bought one of those laser engravers. So we're going to start having machetes in the leather case and we'll start burning Legacy Farms coffee, on the machete cases. Or if you want a custom one, we can put your name on the machete case. Just anything we can think of to reach out to more people, is sort of what we're shooting for.
I gotcha. That sounds great, man. It sounds like you have an awesome business plan.
Well, I hope so. I'm just sort of making it up as I go, and if I have an idea, I try to write it down. But we try a lot of stuff, and a lot of it fails miserably. I can't even speak tonight. But then some of it, starts picking up. And, the reason we found out about the tea was because Terencio, he has a little dice game that he has on Saturdays, which is payday. And he has a liquor he makes out of the coffee cherry tea. Because if you eat the coffee out in the farm, they call it uva, which means grape. So if you break it open, it's got the same veins in it. It looks just like a grape. It tastes very similar to a grape. And so you can ferment it and make a wine out of it. And so that's what he does. And so he serves the wine to you while you're gambling. And so we found out about that. And so a lot of the workers say, yeah, we've tried the coffee wine. And so from there, we started experimenting with it and making the little tea out of it. And, I never thought it was like my idea or something. I knew that other people were doing it too.
Right.
But we just started, lightly fermenting it and then, just drying it out. So it'll dry on the patio right beside the coffee. So our guys have learned how to test it. And we actually put it into the tester that we call test the coffee with. So over the years, we've learned, when the coffee tester says this rating, this point of humidity, we know it's, with coffee cherry tea in the tester, we know that it's dry. You don't want it crunchy dry. You want it slightly pliable,
Yep.
A lot of the guys will just put it in their jaw, like they're chewing tobacco or something.
Tobacco, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the way I like to do it. I'll put a couple little pieces in my mouth and just sort of suck on it for a little while because it has to get really wet before it starts getting juicy. And then your body will start salivating, and then it works pretty good. We've actually made a flour out of it a couple of times, so it makes makes a pretty good flour to bake with. It's really hard to do.
I have to try that eventually.
It's super overpowering. I finally had to get a blade grinder to grind it with. And so you just pulverize it, and it makes a pretty good flour. But it's very overpowering.
I gotcha. Well, Mr. Ashley, I'm gonna have to drop off here, man. Along with my normal 8 to 5 job, I instruct at the university here, and I've got to get my class together because classes start on Tuesday, and I haven't started any of that yet. So. And it's almost 11 o'clock here, and my wife is giving me looks right now. So,
yeah, I think we're both in Central Time. What state are you in?
I'm in Tennessee. I'm about 45 minutes north of Memphis.
Oh, okay.
And I'm right along the river, little town called Mumford, Tennessee.
Yeah, I know where Mumford is. Yeah. Don't y'all have white squirrels or something, or am I? No, that starts with an S. I forget what it is.
Right.
Home of the white squirrel.
Sedonia or Sedalia, something like that. I can't remember.
I'm not sure. Well, I was born in Alamo, and then I moved from Alamo to Moundridge, Kansas, and then I moved back to Tennessee. Then I moved to Honduras, and now I'm back in Kansas. So, but yeah, for 35 years I lived in Alamo, Tennessee. And I still have my office there. I never sold the building, and we've still got everything stored there. So this summer we'll start moving stuff back from Tennessee to Kansas and sort of set up house a little bit better. Well, anything I can help you with, let me know. And I've got a P3L lot that we're getting ready to open up, and it's like an 88.5 coffee, Perry Nama. I haven't roasted it yet. And then I don't know if you've got any of the Marciesa Natural, but I've got 12 pounds of that that we just found in a bag, one of the mixed bags. And so I've got a couple of coffees that I'll put out on the podcast. But tomorrow night, I've got a couple of organic farmers from here in at 7:00 tomorrow night. I'll have on the podcast, and you can always watch it on my Facebook channel or my YouTube channel. You can always watch it. But tomorrow night will be pretty interesting because there are a couple beer drinking guys and they're organic farmers. One of them speaks French, English, and Spanish, and the other one is Spanish, English, and German. So they're very interesting guys. Yeah. But yeah, they're going to be on tomorrow night at 7, and they're super excited to be on the podcast. So we're going to have to get the mixer out and let them wear the earphones and get them microphones and all that and make it fancy. But yeah, keep in touch with me and let me know if there's anything I can help you with. If you need anything, just let me know. If I can help you, I will.
I got you. And I'll tell you this, one of my so I've got a direct from farmer, direct trade I've got a farmer friend over in Guatemala, and I have some of his Marciesa beans, and they are astounding, like awesome cupping scores. So I can't wait to try yours. I don't think I've ever had yours. So I'm gonna place I guess I'm gonna drop in an order. I'm gonna drop in an order very soon, probably by the end of this week.
When you do, send me a PM or DM, whatever they're called, and so I can tell the kids, and we'll see what else we can throw in with that, and I'll let you try something that's not on the. When I have a lot that's 12 pounds, it's never going to get on the internet.
Right.
And I'll see if there's some Mario Hipe in there. I'll get you a pound of that because that's what we won 4th place this year in Marcala with. And so it's a really nice coffee. But yeah, let me know when next time you put an order in, and we'll get you some goodies in there.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Mr. Ashley. I hope you'll have an awesome time in the Honduras. I really want to go back to Central America. I really want to take my wife. Maybe she'll, entertain the idea of moving there, but because it's beautiful, man. It's beautiful.
We have an apartment on the farm, and we're working on a second one right now. And so we're bringing in more groups. And right now, when the groups come, they're mostly guys. We just stick them in the library. They can sleep there. But there's a really decent hotel, 3 miles, 5 miles from us. But if you're involved in a church, put together a mission team, and come up and we'll do some projects.
Yeah, it sounds great, man. I'll put the feelers out. So yeah, I'm really involved in my church up here. So, but yeah, I'm gonna hop off here. It was nice chatting. Maybe I'll catch you guys tomorrow night. Depends on my schedule, which is really crazy at the moment because, like I said, classes are starting.
I'm sorry, McKinsey, Tennessee. They're coming in July.
I got you. Okay.
So they're going to try to start up a yearly thing every July. So that might be a church you could come in with.
Yeah,
let's keep in touch. And I've got to work on a couple of things tonight before I go to bed too.
All right, thanks, Mr. Ashley. Y'all have a great time, man.
All right, thanks a lot. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. All right.
All right, guys, that turned out to be a super long podcast, but thanks for listening in. We're going to log off now, but watch some of our past ones on Legacy Farms Coffee 200 on YouTube or Legacy Farms Coffee 2010 on Instagram. If you have any questions, send them to Facebook Messenger or email me at legacyfarmscoffee@hotmail.com. Thanks, guys, and have a great night. We'll talk to you soon. And tomorrow night, it's going to be a podcast at 7 p.m. Central with a couple of organic farmers from here in Honduras. Thanks.